We'll move on now. Our next speaker is Professor Charles Eason, who's going to talk to us about some of his life's work in toxicology and biotechnology.
Okay. Kia ora tātou, ka nui ngā mihi ki o koutou. So I'm going to very quickly traverse a career in science and innovation, biomedical research, and now natural products. So there's a bit of a jump from the last session, but I'm hoping that some of my closing slides will connect. So I'm going to talk about career options, what sparked my interest in science and biomedical research, and I'm going to reflect on working in multinational pharmaceutical companies, universities, CRIs, SMEs, Cawthron, and now Wakatū, and some of the different approaches and how that influences some of my thinking about the science system. So the next slide is intended to be a little light-hearted around career options, but I met my wife, who's the attractive-looking one in that series of pictures, Candy, who's on the third row back there in the multicoloured jacket. And prior to that, my career was looking rather random. It was sort of heavily influenced by Jimi Hendrix, and I've spent most of my life trying to ski with aspirations of being a ski bum or a ski instructor. I met Candy and for some metamorphosed quite quickly into something akin to a scientist on the right-hand side. Also, influences on science. I came from a medical family. My father was a surgeon in the Second World War, and stories from him of undertaking surgery with lack of antibiotics and sufficient painkillers stuck with me. Also with a fascination of how medicines work and the history of medicines. So coming through the training that I had, understanding aspirin came from the willow bark and morphine from the opium poppy, and lignocaine, our local anesthetics, through from the cocoa plant. And in some areas, rapid changes, and in other areas, very few and great opportunities for discovery. The training that I had came through pharmacology and toxicology and Western science, and Paracelsus, a Swiss German professor of toxicology and medicine in the 15th century. If your German's good, you'll know that says something that's really basically common sense, that all things are poisonous, and it's the dose that distinguishes between a drug and a poison, and hence my career in both biocides and medicines. And understanding mechanisms of toxicity and pathology is also imperative in designing things that are safe or effective in either jurisdictions. So, like many of us, perhaps I was very lucky. I stumbled across an outstanding professor early in my career who had around 150 PhDs and was a leader in medicine and drug metabolism. I also did my PhD 50% within industry in multinational pharmaceutical companies, which were extremely well resourced, so it was kind of a luxurious PhD. In my postdoc era, I learned the importance of effective collaboration between different disciplines, whether it be medical chemistry, clinical pharmacology, etc., which has an outcome then in excellent science and impact, and in this case, delivering new useful medicines over the line and into clinical practice globally. Many biomedical researchers spend their whole careers flirting with medicines and not getting them over the line, and I was fortunate in that period of my career to get 6 new medicines over the line and lead some of these and collaborate in others. And I'm enjoying a second innings in this field, having stimulated biomedical research at Cawthron and now working at Wakatū Incorporation and Nelson on natural health products. So, jumping career, I came from the UK to Aotearoa and got involved at Lincoln University and Manaaki Whenua in pest control and trying to conserve these treasures, our native species. And why do New Zealand invest so much in pest control technology? I think you all know the answer, and it's illustrated on that slide. So the work that I did for over a decade here was looking at trying to find more benign, more humane toxins and traps, treating the pest with respect, but still trying to protect our native species. Interestingly, in this field, there's a history as there is in medicine. So the plant on the left there is red squill, which was used by the ancient Greeks as a cardiac glycoside for heart failure, but also used as a rodenticide. And many of you all know the story of warfarin, discovered from mouldy clover hay and causing hemorrhaging in cattle, and used as a drug and a rodenticide. And about the time that President Eisenhower was one of the first patients to receive warfarin, it was also being developed as a rodenticide. So my role here was involved in developing new traps and poisons which were more targeted, and this is just a list of some of them: Ferretox for possums, Predastop, which contains a compound which was developed as a drug for treating radiation poisoning, propionate, and norbormide, which was developed as an anti-arthritic compound, but is extremely toxic to rats. So looking at new traps and new tools and getting them over the line to help in that fight to conserve our native species. But also, very excitingly, being part of the pest control technology and management of wildlife, where New Zealand takes an absolute lead. So we have cleared, and I'm looking at Mick Clout over there with Island Conservation badge on his lapel, I'm sure. We've cleared 150 islands approximately around New Zealand of pests, and had the opportunity to see indigenous species introduced or recovered on small to large islands, and that has been copied around the world. So you can see the little dots there illustrating the 500 islands. So I think it's almost a hidden story that we're world leading in that island conservation, for some anyway. So I'm moving to the end here, and I've just enjoyed a period as CEO of the Cawthron Institute in Nelson, which has 300 scientists there, and enjoyed the opportunity of not only to lead the organisation generally, but establish purposeful biomedical research within the Institute linked to natural compounds, which for me then was a stepping stone into Wakatū. But this was done in a way it was almost by chance. We had so many experts there in different disciplines, in chemistry, in algae, in aquaculture and food safety, and then redirecting those skills opportunistically to take natural products and medicines through. And you'll see I put anti-inflammatory and pain, and we have compounds being scaled up in production, natural compounds in phase 2 clinical trials as I left Cawthron, and very exciting programs there. So that's a stepping stone for me as I left Cawthron to join Wakatū-AuOra, again in new product development and products for health from indigenous plants and other organisms, and doing it in a really appropriate context. So I have 2 slides to finish with, and the first is an acknowledgement to my whānau, to Candy, to the whānau that I work for right now of Wakatū, my mentors, Dennis Park, and I'm thinking of Bruce Mackenzie and the late Steve Ratton, who nominated me, Hamish Spencer, Margaret Brimble, and my current colleagues, Karenza Johnson, Mariana Stevens, and I'll jump to the bottom there because the last slide is the one I want to labour a point on, and it links to the previous presentations. So for me, diversity of opportunity in a wide range of organisations, overseas and multinationals, through to SMEs, to CRIs and universities here, and then finally Cawthron and Wakatū has really sustained my interest and excitement in science and R&D. So this last slide, I'm really the mouthpiece for Wakatū and Mariana Stevens when I say this, but I'm very empathic with it because it's EDI is always topical. MB just put out for a grant request with a closing date of about a week ago for new initiatives here. But I know there's a strong feeling within Wakatū that more Māori will be attracted into R&D when there's a greater diversity of providers and empathic options, and more research opportunities for Māori-led research within Māori entities with R&D capability, which is why I'm within Wakatū to help support that. And this very much aligns with the Wakatū intergenerational AoOra strategies, not duplicating CRI capability or universities, but synergizing with it. So I think there's great opportunities for all if we align with some of that kind of thinking. So that's where I finished. No reira, ko he mihi poto tēnei, tēnā koutou katoa.